This is a Mosasaurus, one of the largest and most fearsome predators ever to exist. Measuring up to 18 meters long, weighing over 70 tons. This whale-like monster ruled the oceans during the Cretaceous period some 80 million years ago. With powerful jaws full of serrated teeth, it hunted large fish, sharks, turtles, and even other marine reptiles, occasionally breaching the surface to gulp down unlucky birds. So ferocious was the Mosasaurus that paleontologists think it earned its name, which means largest lizard. And it's easy to see why they called it that when you see how huge and terrifying this thing really was. But unfortunately for the Mosasaurus and all of us poor saps living in the United States, that reign of terror ended about 66 million years ago, when an asteroid slammed into Earth and wiped out not only the Mosasaurus, but also the dinosaurs, giving us humans the planet all to ourselves. But what if the Mosasaurus didn't have to go extinct? What if we could bring it back? In this episode of SCI Show, we're going to dive deep into the latest research around bringing the mighty Mosasaurus back from the dead. We are somewhere just offshore from the beautiful beaches of Southern California. Just beyond the breakers, thousands of prehistoric beasts once swam these very waters, including the mighty Mosasaurus. Sadly, no trace of these monsters remains. Their bodies were probably picked clean by scavengers and their bones turned to dust. Still, there are hints of their former glory here in the fossil record. In 2009, an amateur paleontologist named Jim Ersfeld found some vertebrae near the Smoky Hill River in Kansas, which experts later identified as belonging to a Mosasaurus. And just last year, in 2022, paleontologists discovered a new species of Mosasaurus, the M. hoffmanni in South Dakota. But those are just tiny glimpses into the past compared to the incredible experience we're about to take you on. What if the Mosasaurus never went extinct? What if it still swims in our oceans today? You might be asking yourself, should we really do that? And I mean, yes, you could argue that humans are to blame for the current state of our planet, and so maybe we should let the Mosasaurus take revenge on us. Or you could argue that the Mosasaurus would play a beneficial role in our oceans by eating trash and plastic, and generally cleaning things up. In truth, though there are many reasons why bringing back a monster like the Mosasaurus isn't as simple as flicking a switch. Sure, we can clone animals like Dolly the sheep, or genetically modify existing animals like glow-in-thought cats. But bringing back an animal that's been extinct for tens of millions of years is a much more complex challenge. It requires us to go back in time, too, before the extinction event, and pull DNA out of a perfectly preserved specimen. And at first glance, that seems absolutely impossible. After all, the oldest piece of human DNA ever extracted is only around 400,000 years old. And that's after only about 3% of the original sequence survived. So far, we haven't been able to find any viable prehistoric DNA anywhere. And it's unlikely we ever will because DNA has a half-life of about 521 years. That means that after 521 years, half of the bonds within a strand of DNA will have broken down. And after another 521 years, half of the remaining bonds will break, and so on. So finding intact DNA after tens of millions of years is basically impossible. However, paleontologists are actually pretty confident that they have located the closest living relatives of the Mosasaurus. And surprisingly, those relatives aren't some unknown sea creature. They're your common garden-variety garter snakes. Yep, you heard that right. One day we might be able to splice together some sort of snake-like creature that resembles the Mosasaurus. But until then, we have to make do with fossils. Scientists recently used advanced scanning technology to analyze fossilized remains of the Mosasaurus. By combining X-ray technology and computed tomography or CT scans, they were able to get an incredibly detailed look at the inner workings of this prehistoric beast. It's thanks to these technologies that we know now that the Mosasaurus had a thick, flexible neck, much like a whale's. Along with a jaw that could easily open and close in a wide range of angles, perfect for grabbing slippery prey. It's also thanks to these advanced imaging techniques that paleontologists are continuing to learn more about the Mosasaurus' evolutionary history. Did you know, for instance, that the Mosasaurus evolved from a humble lizard that chose violence and decided to move to the ocean? Well, now you do. But there's still a lot we don't know. And if we want to resurrect the Mosasaurus, we're going to have to find out everything about its physiology, behavior, and environment. So while scientists work tirelessly to determine the exact makeup of a Mosasaurus, a few intrepid researchers are taking a different approach. Rather than painstakingly trying to reassemble the Mosasaurus from fragments, these scientists are trying to animate it, thanks to artificial intelligence and a little help from computer science. Researchers have managed to piece together a realistic animation of what the Mosasaurus may have looked like when it roamed the Earth. By analyzing the anatomy of related species and comparing them to fossils, they created this faithful reconstruction of what might be the world's greatest monster. And I gotta say, it looks pretty great. It moves like an aquatic monitor lizard, showing us just how nimble and graceful these ancient creatures really were. It's watching this animation. It's hard to believe that such a creature could have died out. It's almost as if it's still swimming around somewhere almost. But not everyone's convinced that we should bring back the Mosasaurus. Some people worry that the Mosasaurus would wreak havoc on our delicate ecosystem, destroying entire fisheries in mere minutes. Others worry that it could escape captivity or simply live longer than expected, meaning that someday it could end up washed up on the shores of some unsuspecting beach town. Then again, maybe it would just swim back to the depths where it belongs. To be honest, we all never know what the Mosasaurus would do if it were alive today unless we bring it back. But in the meantime, scientists are coming up with clever ways to test how living creatures would react to the Mosasaurs. Using virtual reality headsets, they can simulate the presence of the Mosasaurs and watch how other animals respond. This can tell us whether the Mosasaurs would be accepted by other creatures or eaten alive. The good news is that so far every VR test has shown that the Mosasaurus would either be ignored or accepted by other animals, so it might just be able to live among us without incident. But whether it should or shouldn't live among us is another question altogether. There are ethical considerations to keep in mind here, especially when we're dealing with a creature as big as the Mosasaurus. Some people say that if we bring it back, we should set it free in the oceans where it belongs. But others say that it would be too dangerous to do that. Instead, we should keep it locked up in a zoo or aquarium where nobody could get hurt. But what if we brought back several Mosasaurs, so that they could live out their lives together in a kind of Jurassic Park meets SeaWorld situation? Well, there's really no way of knowing what would happen in that scenario since it has never been tried before. Perhaps a small group of Mosasaurs could be brought back and carefully monitored. If something went wrong, we always had the option to reverse the process and kill the Mosasaurs before it got too big and too dangerous. It would be like the old days of nuclear testing when the US government detonated over 1,000 nuclear bombs in the Nevada desert. Of course, that caused some problems. Like cancer rates skyrocketed among the soldiers who worked the tests. But that's beside the point. Bringing back the Mosasaurus would be risky, but it would also be exciting. Think of all the cool boat videos we could take if we knew there was a 70-ton monster lurking just below the surface. Do you want to see the Mosasaurus return? Let us know in the comments section. And while you're down there, make sure you hit that subscribe button. For now, the Mosasaurus remains extinct, lost to the sands of time. But that doesn't mean we won't keep looking for it. In fact, paleontologists have been searching for the Mosasaurus for decades, and they've found plenty of clues that this legendary creature did indeed exist. We've found its vertebrae and skull bones, as well as hundreds of teeth. All of these fossils tell us that the Mosasaurus was once a very real animal, not just a figment of our imagination. So while we may never see the Mosasaurus swimming around our oceans again, we can take comfort in knowing that it really did exist, and who knows? Maybe one day we'll be able to bring it back. Now I'm going to take a wild guess and say that if you clicked on this video, you're interested in stuff like this, which means you probably like science and tech stories and documentaries. And I'm proud to say that Nebula is where SCI Show always ends up going when we want to explore a big creative idea to its fullest potential. One of my favorite things on Nebula right now is a docuseries called Inside the Mind of a Con Artist. It's fascinating to see how someone can manipulate people into doing whatever they want. And it's even more interesting when you hear the actual tapes of the cons happening. My favorite episode is called The Bunny Ears Scam, which is crazy. This guy scammed like millions of dollars out of investors. It's bonkers. You can watch all of that plus shows like Real Engineering, The Action Lab, and more when you sign up at nebula.com/SCI Show. A subscription is less than $10 per year, and you get access to all sorts of awesome content. And signing up helps support our channel and all of our independent creators. Thanks for watching.